We are roughly a month and a half away from the hot stove truly reaching an inferno. But even now, we can pretty confidently identify a handful of American League teams who are going to be sellers. Today, we're breaking down who they are, what they have to offer, and how a team like our very own Minnesota Twins might benefit. Let's dive in. First up, and no surprise here, the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox are currently 16 games below 500. They openly acknowledged a multi-year rebuild this offseason, so this is par for the course. But what do they have to offer? For rentals, they've got outfielders Michael A. Taylor and Austin Slater, along with recently acquired starter Aaron Civale. They could also look to move infielder Josh Rojas and outfielder Mike Tauchman, who are controlled through 2026. However, the name that's been swirling in trade rumors for a while now, and the one teams will aggressively kick the tires on at the deadline, is outfielder Luis Robert Jr. Robert Jr. signed a pre-arbitration extension that includes a $20 million team option for 2026 and 2027 with a $2 million buyout. He was once a top prospect, but the 28-year-old has battled injuries and struggled at the plate over the last two seasons. Realistically, the Twins and White Sox won't be trade partners, but they could benefit from adding a starting pitcher like Civale while they tread water until Pablo Lopez and Xavi Matthews return from injury. Next, let's talk about the Athletics. Remember when they started the season 22-20? Yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago. They've been in a free fall ever since, now sitting at 13 games below 500. While they have some exciting young talent, they're clearly not ready to compete, and they have a handful of rentals that could be moved at the deadline. The most notable names are utility players Miguel Andujar and Luis Urias, both of whom have actually produced above average at the plate this season. Another option is former Twins third baseman Gio Urshela. He's 2 years removed from his last productive season, and his glove isn't great. But he could be an interesting short side platoon bat and a cheap option if Royce Lewis is out for an extended period of time. On the pitching side, relievers Jose Leclerc and TJ McFarland are available, though Leclerc has been hurt and McFarland has struggled. It's almost a certainty at least one of Andujar, Urias, or Urshela are traded. For the Twins, any one of the infielders mentioned could provide a much-needed offensive spark and some versatility. And finally, a team that's surprisingly on this list, the Baltimore Orioles. Injuries aside, it's actually pretty shocking to see them struggling this much after winning 91 games and making the playoffs last year. Now, they're 11 games below 500 and only 6.5 games out of a playoff spot, so it's not a lock that they will in fact be sellers. The key difference here is the Orioles aren't in a rebuild, so expect them to limit their moves to players on expiring deals. That might include starting pitcher Zach Eflin or Charlie Morton, or reliever Tomoyuki Sugano and Gregory Soto, along with outfielder Cedric Mullins. Eflin, Sugano, and Soto are all having successful seasons and will draw significant trade interest at the deadlines. Mullins isn't quite the player he once was, but has still been productive enough to draw interest at the deadline. Now, two names that have been in trade rumors but are controlled beyond 2025 are first baseman Ryan Mountcastle and outfielder Heston Kjerstad. Mountcastle is out 8 to 12 weeks with a hamstring injury and is having a down year at the plate. Kjerstad has recently been optioned to AAA and has been struggling to find playing time. He often finds himself as the odd man out in their stacked young lineup. For the Twins, while their pitching has been better, a reliable veteran like Zach Eflin could provide valuable depth and experience, especially with the aforementioned injuries. However, given his cost in both salary and prospect capital, it's safe to assume he'll be too expensive for the Twins. So how do the Twins fit into all of this? Well, it's a familiar tune for us Twins fans: inconsistent offense. It's the reason for their peaks and valleys this season. They don't have one specific weakness, but they could benefit from an improved lineup. Our third basemen have one of the lowest OPSs in baseball, and the Lewis injury just opened the door to acquire a bat that can manage the hot corner. Second base has been a rotation, but it's actually produced the 9th highest OPS in baseball, whereas our catchers have been a black hole. Unfortunately, it's hard to see them dealing Jeffers or Vasquez given their production. That leaves designated hitter, but the Twins roster isn't really built for a full-time DH. Improving the offense likely means dealing one of our current regular contributors, and that feels unlikely. On the pitching side, if we were talking 2 weeks ago, the Twins might have considered flipping a starter for a hitter. But with the Pablo Lopez injury and the constant threat of another injury, such as a Bailey Ober hip issue maybe, the Twins are now just one injury away from a very, very bad spot. So adding a reliable arm like Zach Eflin or even Aaron Savali suddenly looks a lot more appealing. With all of that said, we haven't really addressed the elephant in the room: money. Let's be real, money will likely be the reason why the Twins are, once again, quiet at the trade deadline. They'll also have the built-in excuse of Lopez returning from an injury to justify not making a big splash. Could they benefit from Zach Eflin or even Miguel Andujar? Absolutely. But if history is any indication, we all know how this plays out for our Twins. What do you think? Which AL teams do you think will be sellers? And what moves should the Twins make despite the financial limitations? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more Twins and MLB content, and visit twinsdaily.com for more.